What's up, guys? Welcome to Box to Box Football, and I'm here with Jack. And somehow he convinced me that James, we have to do a video. And I was like, "What type of video can we do?" We didn't have because this is during the international break, and there's not much football to talk about. But Aguero has just announced that he's leaving Manchester City, and the question is right now, where does he rank all time as when it comes to all time strikers in Premier League history? Now we all know Aguero, he is one of the greatest strikers in Premier League history. Let me just get how many goals he scored in the Premier. So he has 181 goals, the most from a foreigner in England. And
Unreal.
to be fair, he might get to 185 by the end of the season. And like during his time, he struggled with so many injuries, but he's still been able to score so many goals. And the question is, where does he rank all time? So what Jack did was get what we consider to be the 25 best strikers in Premier League history. I know there's a few left out there. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we actually can't
Sorry
fill
about
out
that.
more players like Ian Wright. There's so many players that we kind of left out there. Dimitar Bergkamp, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Who else? Who else did we leave out, Jack?
Tevez.
Tevez.
We left Anelka in, didn't we?
Oh yeah, Anelka's in there, but yeah, so many players that like we missed out on. So apologies if your favorite isn't in there. We have to speak to tier list to let us have more people on this list. But Jack, let's get into this list. We're gonna rank the 25. So what
Yeah,
we
man.
consider to
So
be the 25 best.
we're kind of going from alphabetical here just to keep things as fair as possible. So we're actually starting with the man himself, which is quite fitting, really. So James, I'm just going to go out straight away, and obviously everybody listening at home, this list is going to develop. We're going to have 5 in each row as things go on, and we're going to have them in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., etc. But we're starting with the man himself. James, I'm going to say straight away that I don't know where he is in the top 5. I'd say he's probably going to be 4th or 5th for me, but he's in that top row.
Just put him in the top row for now. He's definitely top 5. Definitely top 5. I don't think there's much to argue there. But let's move on to the next one.
Andy Cole.
Andy Cole.
A little more difficult because he played in some really nice teams. He had one hell of a strike partner who we'll get on to. I don't know how I feel about this one.
Jack, he's third in all-time leading goal scores in the Premier League with 187 goals, Jack. You know, I feel like as striker-wise, he's one of the most underrated names because when you think about the best, you don't really mention his name, but the record is there, Jack. He's one of the best. Looking at this record, I'll put him in the top 10. So could we maybe pop him in the 6 to 10 ranking for now?
I'm going to say I think he lingers somewhere 11 to 15 because I think because the thing is with this whole list, my God, there are some names coming up, and I think we're going to think about Andy Cole a hell of a lot differently when these names start to come out. But Nicolas Anelka, James, I'm going to say down in the 21 to 25 for me, for Anelka.
Totally agree. He might be looking at the 23rd, 25th spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy with that, Jack.
Dennis Bergkamp. Now, I know you and I are both going to be biased here. This is one of my favorite players of all time. Obviously, he's an Arsenal legend. For me, like, this is a guy I want to put in the top 5, like, if I'm thinking with the heart. But if I'm thinking with the head, I feel like maybe closer to 10 to 12 kind of range. What do you think?
Unfortunate thing about Dennis Bergkamp is that is like great as he was for Arsenal, he's only 43rd all time in like the Premier League goal scoring list. He has 87 goals for a striker of his quality. That isn't amazing. He has Adebayor seems to have more goals than him. Unfortunately, but based on ability, Jack, if you're just going based on ability, I think he's number 1. His ability as a football player was just second to none. His touch, his ability to find a pass, his overall awareness of the game. He's one of my favorites of all time. He's, to me, the second greatest Arsenal player of all time. I love Dennis Bergkamp. I think we put him in a 6 to 10. If that's good.
Above or below Andy Cole? I'm going to say above. I think he's better than Andy Cole.
I think he's better than Andy Cole, but did he do enough than Andy Cole in Premier League? In like the Premier League era, we're talking Premier League, Jack. I think overall career, he's had a better career than Andy Cole, but I would just put Andy Cole over him. Okay. The fact that Cole was in the Premier League longer and he scored more goals.
I'm happy with that. Next one, I don't think is up for much debate. I think Eric Cantona's straight in the top five there. I I don't know how I feel though. I think it's a bit of a coin toss. I think he's probably one spot ahead of Aguero, maybe, but I think that's kind of close.
Jack, Eric Cantona is so underrated to the point of view people don't understand how influential this guy is. I think people look at who is Manchester United's most influential player of all time. To me, it's Eric Cantona. We don't get the Manchester United we have today if it wasn't for Eric Cantona dragging this team to titles at times. His last season as a football player, he dragged Manchester United. I think in the last like 15 games, he scored like 8 winning goals, something crazy like that. He is above Sergio Aguero for the reasons of, like, you talk about cult heroes, you talk about a man. Eric Cantona is that guy, and yes, I will put him above. I don't think many people even get above Eric Cantona, to be fair.
Moving on, Jermaine Defoe, a player I think that by virtue of the clubs he played for in his career, is not going to maybe get the love and respect that maybe he would have if he'd ever had the opportunity to play for an Arsenal, a Chelsea, a Manchester United, a team of that ilk. So to me, I'm thinking the lower end of the 16 to 20s, or probably more likely, maybe the 21 to 25s. What do you think?
I agree with you for the fact, like we all know he has been one of the best finishers in Premier League history, but the fact of the matter is I don't think he's won a Premier League title. He just hasn't been put himself in that situation. And I think with Defoe is that, unfortunate for him, he hasn't been the man at a big club, in the Premier League. You look at all these strikers, they've led they've led the line for the best teams. Like, he's been with Tottenham, but you could say for his best times at Tottenham, he wasn't the best. He wasn't the main man.
So what do we think? Do we better than Anelka?
Yes, I'll put him above Anelka. Actually,
Anelka was one hell of a on Anelka's day. He was borderline unplayable.
No, put Anelka ahead of Jermaine Defoe. Yeah.
So moving on to the next one, Didier Drogba. Now, personally, and you may disagree with me here, this is a bit of a bold statement. If I, Jack Farr, the manager, was picking a team, all these guys in their prime, the number one pick I would take above anybody on this list for my team that I'm managing would be Didier Drogba. I think Didier Drogba is that good, not just from a standpoint of, scoring goals, because we know he wasn't as prolific as some of the other names on this list, but to me, the guy as a mentality and as a leader and as just a force of nature doing things by himself, Drogba was the man. Drogba was the man. I know I'm not going to get him in the top 5 of this list, but I think I'd rather have Didier Drogba in my team than Sergio Aguero.
Jack, I can agree with you to certain instincts. He wouldn't be my number one pick, but if I played a 4-4, a 4-3-3, and I had one player to play up front, it would be Didier Drogba. Because The fact of the matter is that he was the most unplayable one striker team I've ever seen. You can lump the ball up to this guy. He can stick it. He can run in behind. When he like when he holds a defender, he's almost unstoppable. You've seen the way Jose Mourinho was able to build a team around him at Chelsea, and so many other Chelsea managers came on and were successful because when Didier Drogba was at his best, Chelsea were very much successful. But the problem with Didier Drogba is that, Jack, if you're being honest, Didier Drogba technically only really had 2 good seasons in the Premier League where like he was managed to get over 20 goals twice throughout this whole time in the Premier League. Now, his influence is just more than goals. So that's the one thing. But that's the one thing I'll give to you. But a lot of times with Drogba, there's times when, let's say, things wouldn't happen when due to injuries or like manager disputes, and that's something that just kind of brings him down. But his overall Premier League contribution, Jack, I would personally put him over Andy Cole and Dennis Bergkamp.
I think so. And James, I'll be totally lying to you if I didn't think of the man outside the white lines. His philanthropic work, his altruistic work, and a lot of this stuff goes without, not to get into anything kind of too too current in terms of non-football stuff right now, but we're seeing a lot of people these days do things as a form of performative activism. So on their Instagram and on their Twitter, they can look like they're supporting causes that matter, and everybody thinks they're great people. Didier Drogba goes about his business, changing people's lives, does not make a big song and dance about it. The man has done wonders for his hometown, his home country. I can't speak highly enough about the guy, and I'm glad we at least have him in the top 10. Moving on.
Jack, if we are going, we might have to bring him down a little bit. We'll see. You know how I feel about Didier Drogba is one of my favorite strikers of all time.
Okay. James, I'm not letting him go 11 to 15. I'm not doing it.
Okay, we'll let's just move on for now.
I might, if 10th is the lowest, I'll go for Drogba.
Jack, you know I'm such a huge fan of Didier, but let's move on to the next player.
Okay, pretty easy one, this one, James, I'd say. Let's not beat around the bush here. I think in my opinion, I'd say there's 2 or 3 names that you could argue are number 1. I think that this one, to me, is the clearest one. I'm a little frustrated because you see Aguero's picture, see the way it's like there's no color in the background. That's what I thought I was getting for Henry's picture. So Henry looks like he's on a chessboard or something, but
he looks like he's on a video game. He looks like his legend card on FIFA.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that, everybody. But anyway, to me, this is the number 1. I think you can make arguments for other people on this list, but for me, this is number 1. I'm sure you're not going to disagree with me.
Jack, you know how I feel about Thierry Henry. As I said, not just only the greatest striker in Premier League history, to me, he's the greatest player in Premier League history. He's the most devastating force. No one reached the heights that he reached in the Premier League. The one blemish on his career was that he never won a Ballon d'Or as a Premier League player. But
right.
For me, just the best, the number 1 guy, Thierry Henry. Just You know how I feel about Thierry.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a slightly easier one to pick for that one. So next, James, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Any kind of opinions on where you think he should fall?
Another underrated player. Let me just get up his goal scoring. So 127 goals in the Premier League, 14 all time. Don't think he's won a Premier League title, unfortunately, but he was at Chelsea during before Abramovich. So this was the real Chelsea. The Chelsea that we see right now is not the real. But I'm only playing Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Just an absolute devastating player. And the one thing about him, his left foot. I've never seen someone hit the ball so hard in my life. His left foot was just an absolute rocket.
So James, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that Anelka, Defoe, and Hasselbank, that's the same kind of level of guy. But as we get further and further into this list, I'm looking at some of these names. I think that a couple of those guys may bump up to 16 to 20. I'd like to put Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank just ahead of Anelka.
Okay.
But then I think in future, one of those guys is probably going to be bumped up when we see things a little clearer. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I can agree with you. Definitely can agree with you.
Now we're moving on to somebody now, and there's a couple of guys like this on this list. I'm not gonna deny it, but guys who have yet to fulfill parts of their career. Now Harry Kane is one of those guys. I still think we're going to have him relatively high, but I still think that potentially Harry Kane has another 5-6 years, and we may see him in the top 5 of this list when all is said and done. But James, we can only do it from what we've seen. We can't make a projection for the future. Harry Kane could sign for Real Madrid this summer. Who knows? Where do you think Harry Kane, as of today, we are the 31st of March, where do you think Harry Kane is all-time Premier League strikers if he retired today?
Well, Harry Kane still has so much football left. But the fact of the matter is he has 106 goals in 7 seasons.
Unreal.
It's absolutely 7-8 seasons. He's phenomenal football player, especially where he came from being on loan, going to Norwich and Leicester, not really getting games, and now to being the best striker in the Premier League. He hasn't fulfilled his potential overall, because the fact of the matter is he needs that bit of silverware. A player like him deserves a Premier League title to his name. He deserves trophies. But looking at what these guys have already given us and basing it on Harry Kane's overall Premier League career, I'll put him in the 15 to 11 range, if that's okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I mean, guys, everybody listening, Tottenham fans in particular, and also some England fans, I guess, as well, and maybe some Man United or Man City fans. Hey, who knows where he's going to be next season? I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that as long as Harry Kane remains in the Premier League, that he will be a top 5 all-time Premier League striker. I mean, the goals speak for themselves. We can talk about talent. You know, I think Dennis Bergkamp is a more talented player than somebody like Harry Kane. But unfortunately, goals speak for themselves, and they're worth their weight in gold. And Harry Kane gets goals. That's something we know. James, a kind of difficult one for me. Definitely the hardest one for me to place. Jurgen Klinsmann. Where do you think Jurgen Klinsmann's going to fit in this list?
I'm just trying to look at his goal tally here.
Right.
I feel with Jurgen Klinsmann, I think he only played for Tottenham in the Premier League. He's more of a cult hero there. I remember like he kind of came in and like saved them during a time of uncertainty. Not really too much I know about Jurgen Klinsmann. I know more of what he did outside of the Premier League, especially with the German team in like the World Cup. But personally, again, I'll put him in like the list of you're talking 21 to 25.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd like to put him at the bottom. And I'll tell you why. I hate lack of games, plain and simple. He didn't play enough for Tottenham for me, and it's a discredit to some of these guys who stayed fit and were at it year after year after year. I think I've got it here, 56 games. Now, hey, 29 goals in 56 games. You're doing something right. Nearly a goal every other game for a Tottenham team at the time. Like you say, cult hero, I think sums him up. But on an all-time list, we can't give him too much credit.
But Jack, do you feel like we're being disrespectful here to the point of view like we left players out like Ian Wright, who scored 113 goals? Adebayor probably should have been on this list. That Tevez probably, Dimitar Berbatov, we probably should have taken him off and
we probably should have. I think because obviously we did talk about it before we started. I think that we're potentially a little bit too respectful to the past, and maybe this one we've let our kind of respect for the past get to us a little bit too much. So maybe one of those other names you mentioned should be on this list instead. So moving on to Matt Le Tissier. James, where are you going to put Matt Le Tissier?
Again, his goals. He could put his goals against any other player in football history. Like some of the most amazing goals you'll ever see. Played for Southampton his whole career. The guy was like a phenomenon there. They're like their best player. Letis is like they like to call him. Based on his ability, you can put him in the top 10. But the fact of the matter is that he played for a team who unfortunately didn't do enough. He was a part of teams who were around relegation battles throughout his whole career.
Fish in a small pond.
But he scored 100 goals in his career. And Jack, to be honest, he's more of a midfielder than a striker.
Right. Yep.
You know? But I will put him in a 16 to 20 range, if that's okay.
I think he'll probably end up around 19 or 20. I agree with you. Yet again, I look at him similar to that of somebody like a Defoe, where it's like great players, but they never really were the man for the team. And don't get me wrong, you'd argue it's harder to do something like that for a team like Southampton for all those reasons that you just mentioned. But if we're being honest, do we really think Matt Le Tissier never had an option to move to a bigger club, to play more competitive football, to play in Europe at some point? I find that difficult to believe. So I think some of that is on him. Moving on to another huge name, Les Ferdinand. James, where do you think Les Ferdinand's going to rank for you?
Again, another underrated name. 149 goals in the Premier League. Play for Newcastle. Like during their boom period, had a good stint. At also Tottenham. That's where like he got the majority of his goals at. I think we pop Les. Like Jack, he's in the 11th spot all time. We put him. It's rather we put him in the 16 to 20 range, or let's go 16 to 20 range.
I agree, and I think just a bit ahead of Matt Le Tissier. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I think we should take out Matt Le Tissier because he's more of a midfielder than a striker, Jack.
I know, but I'm going on forwards, and I'm looking at other lists which compared these kind of names, and these names were included. Gianfranco Zola is somebody who we took out. A lot of lists have Gianfranco Zola in the kind of in the kind of forwards and strikers category. So that's why they're included. Romelu Lukaku, probably coming off the best year of his career. I mean, it's still happening. Chances are Inter Milan are going to win the Scudetto this year. Chances are Romelu Lukaku is going to absolutely tear it up at the Euros. However, I don't know anytime soon. Actually, rumours recently about Chelsea trying to sell Timo Werner and sign Romelu Lukaku back to the London team. I don't personally see that happening. So we can kind of potentially say that maybe his career in England is done, maybe. But James, what did you make of his Premier League career when it happened?
Again, Jack, so young. He's managed to score 113 goals in the Premier League. And he's only 26, 27
Right.
years of age. We knew what happens when he joined Chelsea. He went to West Brom, tore it up there. Never scored for Chelsea, but went to Everton and also tore it up there. But the fact of the matter is that if you're looking at the influence of other strikers, yes, Lukaku was great, but did he influence it the way the rest of these strikers did and the strikers already on the list? No. Still had so much to give. I'm putting Romelu Lukaku in the 24th spot.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Just ahead of Klinsmann there. I think with Lukaku it's difficult. The Manchester United move was absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. I did not understand it in the slightest. I believe that was the summer when Morata went to Chelsea.
And Lacazette went to Arsenal, and them
Arsenal.
three fans were just talking, oh, who got the best deal? Technically,
Yeah.
Arsenal did.
But also as well, like, you know, if we move some players around from each of those teams, we maybe have a much better outcome. I think the most standout one is, why did Chelsea not re-sign Lukaku? You know, we know how Morata did at Chelsea, and maybe if Morata went to Manchester United or to Arsenal or Lacazette, blah blah blah, we don't know how it would have happened. So that to me was a poor move. Lack of success at Chelsea, I think, as well was a main thing. It's not that he did badly, but they were always looking for better. Diego Costa obviously comes in, takes a huge spot. So a great player. If this was an all-time Premier League, an all-time football, you know, striker list, I'm sure he'd be higher than a hell of a lot of these names actually. But this is a Premier League list, and we've got to go based on Premier League. Moving on, James, the last Englishman to win a Ballon d'Or. The only guy who can play a sideways pass and do his knee in during playing for his country, Michael Owen. Really weird one for me. I don't know whether he's a top 10 or whether he's in kind of a 16 to 20 range. It's kind of a funny assessment here.
Michael Owen as a youngster was an absolute phenomenon. Don't
Right.
get it twisted. Just the amount of frightening. We see Mbappe, we see Haller today. Michael Owen was that. You know, he was just quick in front of goal, just one of the best finishers you'll ever see. But the fact of the matter is that a good 6 or 7 years of his career, he just wasn't. He was a shell of himself.
No.
You know, during his time in Newcastle, the Stoke City, we don't really want to talk about that, and at Manchester United. He is the one that also what could have been.
Right.
If he would have stayed fit in these injuries, you're looking at that top 10, you're looking at the top 5. But I'm happy to put him in that 11 to 15 range. And
I think we can both agree below Harry Kane.
Harry Kane,
right?
yes.
Moving on, another kind of quote-unquote Liverpool legend, Robbie Fowler. This just reeks to me of kind of 16 to 20 right now. I've got to be honest with you. I think the thing is, to everybody watching at home, yeah, okay, we've got Lukaku, Defoe, Klinsmann, Anelka, Hasselbank down in this kind of bottom column. We're still calling him one of the 25 best strikers the Premier League has ever seen. But by no means are you a bad player if you come into these bottom tiers. We James and I think in isolation, love all these players and think they're all fantastic. But Robbie Fowler, to me, 16 to 20. James, what do you think?
I would put him ahead of Michael Owen, Jack.
Would you really?
The fact of the matter, Jack, he's more goals than Michael Owen. And I feel like Michael Owen's last few years really dampened his career because people don't remember the Michael Owen, the one going past all these Argentinian players. Like, Robbie Fowler throughout his whole career had a solid career in every team that he went to. Scored like he scored goals during the time at Leeds, Liverpool. Like, it's rather
I think Michael Owen has more goals per game. Michael Owen also has a Premier League title. Now, I know we're purely talking about the striker position. It's not all based on achievements. But I think if you ask me, I would have much rather had prime Michael Owen than I would have had prime Robbie Fowler.
Okay, I'm happy to. Okay, let's go 16 to 20.
So, like, yeah, I'm happy to have him above Les and Matt Letizia. Are you happy with that?
Yep, yep, yeah. I'm happy with that. What, he's like seventh overall in Premier League goal scoring. He's probably, looking at finisher wise, he's one of the best finishers like in this group, and everyone's a fantastic striker here, but he could finish.
Hands down. Okay, James, we're getting to crunch time now. The moment you kind of start to go down the alphabet a bit, it starts to get kind of tricky in terms of evaluations. Wayne Rooney.
Top
Where
five,
does Rooney
top five, top five, top five. Underrated.
compared to Aguero, Cantona?
Jack, the fact of the matter is that he retired with 5 Premier League titles to his name. 5. So that's, I think, the most on this list at this moment of time. I think Aguero's gonna have 5 right now, but Aguero's this season he's barely played. Rooney finishes his career as Manchester United's all-time leading goal scorer, and as an achievement, that is such an under to say you finish your career as Manchester United's greatest striker. It's, to me, it's
And England, and England.
and England's all-time leading like goal scorer. I think he's like top 3 in assists, Jack, and also
Yeah.
he's a striker that, to me, like was more than just a striker. He was like a number 9.5, could play as a 10, and you've seen during his career how he dropped down from number 10 to now 8 to a 4, where he's sitting, like, there's so many things he could do.
Right.
To me, he's a top 10, such an underrated guy, and I want to put him over Eric Cantona, but people need to remember how amazing Eric Cantona was. Like, Eric Cantona, he really changed the game. So let's put Eric Cantona above him.
Okay. I was going to say I was inclined to agree with you there. I think Rooney. People need to forget that when Manchester United were kind of at their most successful, Rooney was really there for nearly all of it. We have to, like, okay, he missed those first couple of years, let's say, where there was the treble and all these kind of things, mainly because he was probably about 11 or 12 at the time. But by the time that he then made it to the club, there was the back-to-back titles, there was Champions League success, countless kind of FA Cups, League Cups, that kind of thing. So, and like you say, 9.5 is absolutely spot on. We've seen some. I remember, James, do you remember the DC United clip where he runs back to halfway, makes a sliding tackle, puts in this crazy cross, they score, and then I think they win the game off that. That's got Wayne Rooney written all over it. Even forgetting about all the goals he scored. Next one. Here's going to be an interesting conversation. Alan Shearer. Now, I think the easy thing to do here, James, is say, yep, top 5, no questions asked. Maybe put him 4th or 5th, maybe even 3rd, who knows. What do we think about Alan Shearer?
Alan Shearer, you put him in the top 3. Top 3 without a doubt. I think, to me, I put him 2nd. And to a lot of the newbies, oh yeah, Alan Shearer, yeah. We like our Suarez, our Torres, our, guys. Alan Shearer is all-time leading goal scorer in Premier League history. Yes, he's played a lot of games, but the fact of the matter is, like, I don't think anyone has more 30 goals a season seasons than Alan Shearer. He's 3 golden boots to his name. And he could have done the easiest thing and joined Manchester United and won 5, 6, 7 league titles, and had a ride. But he decided to go to Newcastle and come close so many times, but he did something that made him happy, and that's go to his club and to be all-time leading goal scorer for Newcastle and also win a league with Blackburn. So underrated for what he does. Jack, we have to put him 2nd. He is.
For me, one title is disappointing. I think the incredible thing about Shearer is people will often talk about, like, oh, well, he played for so long, that's why he had so many goals. Guys, 441 games and he has a 0.59 goals per game ratio. I got guys here who've played half that amount of games, maybe even a quarter of those games, and they don't have a good as goals per game ratio than somebody like Alan Shearer did. So we cannot deny how impressive what he did, and also never doing it at the top club, like you mentioned, in Manchester United for all those years. My question, though, do you take prime Alan Shearer or do you take prime Cantona, prime Rooney? That's my only question. I think you take Prime Henry. I think that's easy. But for me, I think I'd probably take Eric Cantona on his best day than I would Alan Shearer on his best day.
But as long as he goes top 5, that's all.
Oh, he's going top 5. I think he's definitely better than Aguero. But for me, I think him and Wayne Rooney is definitely a debate and worth discussing. That's why I'm more inclined to put him between Cantona and Rooney.
Go on, then. Go on. Let's put him between Cantona. I do think we should pop him second. It's just the fact that he's the all-time leading goal scorer. To me, it's that feat alone is just huge, and he's the only guy to score 200 goals in the Premier League. Or how many is Wayne Rooney?
As I've given you a lot of these,
second guy.
I'm going to put my foot down and put Alan Shearer as number 3.
Okay, Jack said it, guys. I tried, Alan. I tried.
I'm also controlling the screen, so I can really do whatever I want. James, Teddy Sheringham, kind of another one where it's kind of an interesting evaluation relative to the other names on this list. What do you think?
Teddy Sheringham. Let me get how many goals he scored. So he has 146 goals. I think 3 Premier League titles to his name, was a part of the Manchester United treble winning team. We all remember him scoring the equalizer in Munich. Again, he's one of them guys that throughout he's one of the what's the word? He's one of the guys that he's been there throughout the start of the Premier League. You know, he's always there. He retired in like when he was 41 or something like that, playing for West Ham.
Oldest ever Premier League goal scorer.
Premier League goal scorer. Like, he is brilliant, and like he's a proper cult hero. The one thing about Teddy Sheringham is that he played for so many teams. When you think of each player here, you think of a team that they're associated with. Right. Sheringham was like, he had Tottenham. Obviously, we think about his Manchester United time, but didn't spend that much time at Manchester United when you think about it overall. But I'm inclined to put him in the situation of, can we pop him in the 11 to 15 range?
Yes, I'm happy with that. That's where I was going to go. I think behind Michael Owen. I like Teddy Sheringham, and I'm not trying to dispute the role of second striker. I mean, we have Dennis Bergkamp currently sitting in 8th, for goodness sake. So I'm not trying to dismiss that kind of second striker role. But I feel like if we are talking about strikers, for me, I'm always going to give the privilege to that kind of main guy. And Teddy Sheringham, I don't know if was ever the main guy. And also, James, 146 goals in 418 appearances. I mean, if we just compare that to somebody like Alan Shearer, who played a similar amount of games, I mean, it's kind of a stark contrast there. So, yeah, I'm happy for him to be certainly a hell of a lot closer to 15 than 11.
But also, Teddy was also like, not only just a goal scorer, he was more of a provider too. He wasn't the quickest guy, but his intelligence to read the game, and you know, he's a guy that if you play next to, you would enjoy, because the fact that he would offer you chances to score and he would create chances for you. So he's not like an overall goal scorer.
James, Luis Suarez. I was a little bit hesitant to put him on this list because he really wasn't around for a very long time. But I think that we can't deny how ridiculously strong that time period was for him. And we have to remember that this is the guy, okay, this didn't happen in the Premier League, that got this huge transfer to Barcelona. That from this huge transfer to Barcelona, got one of the most recognized front threes in recent memory in the MSN, Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, and propelled them. So, yes, it wasn't a very long period of time, which for me takes a lot of points away from him. But what can you say about Suarez and where he should fit on this list?
Suarez, again, I think he played 3.5 seasons in the Premier League, but what a 3.5 seasons he played. I remember I was speaking to Jed, and he was telling me top 3 in Premier League history when it comes to strikers, and he put Suarez in there. I was like, how can you put Suarez in there? And he was basing it on their whole career. I'm basing it on what they did. But what Suarez did in the Premier League was absolutely astonishing. We all remember his last season in the Premier League, and a lot of people can argue, and I did a list of the best seasons of all time in the Premier League. He was second. To have a season where you play he played 31 games and scored 31 goals and came so close to leading Liverpool to a title. And I think if he would have did that season, you're looking in the top 6 or even top 5 range. I think if he would have won the title that year, he would have
Right.
been like at that level. But the fact of the matter is that just didn't spend enough time there. But the quality of time there puts him personally in that 11 to 15 range. That's where I want to put him in, and I want to wedge him in between Teddy Sheringham and Michael Owen, or we can put him ahead of him because I feel like overall, all at their absolute prime, Suarez was ahead of all of them.
I think he should be in 16 to 20. And yet again, it's purely due to lack of appearances. I'm not even gonna deny about prime Suarez compared to prime Andy Cole or prime Teddy Sheringham or prime Les Ferdinand, Matt Letizia or prime Robbie Fowler. Like, I do believe Suarez is a better player. When it's all said and done, Suarez is going to have a career that's better than a majority of the people on this list. But for me, 3.5 seasons, just over 100 kind of appearances in the league, I just don't love that in comparison to what some of these other guys have given to this league.
Jack, Steven Gerrard was asked, so who's the best striker you've played with at Liverpool? Bear in mind, this had Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Torres. He said, by good distances, Luis Suarez.
Oh, yeah, James, I agree. I think he is the best striker Steven Gerrard ever played with. But for me, I do like that longevity, and I do like doing it for a longer period of time. And I don't know. I'm happy. How do you feel about 15th?
Yeah, let's go 15. Let's go 15 because I feel like that quality of time that he spent there was just it's sensational.
It was. I can't. I mean, I'm not even going to. I mean, what was his goals per game? 0.63. I think that might even be higher than anybody else on this list. Actually,
Henry's number one.
Henry's number one. Of course he is. James, Fernando Torres, at his best, man. That was one hell of a showing. But at its worst, especially later on, signing for Chelsea. Not so pretty. That's going to take points away from him, surely.
Fernando Tarza was again a guy that, if he would have kept the trajectory that he was going on, we're looking at a easily top 6. Top 10 player. What a player! His first 3 seasons in the Premier League for Liverpool, just astonishing. Well, his first season with Liverpool, 24 goals. We remember some of the most memorable moments. Him tormenting, destroying Vidic, one of the best defenders in Premier League history. Torres owned that guy on a number of occasions. But the fact of the matter is, just after that, that Chelsea move really killed them, and just to see the pity when watching him at times at Chelsea, just praying that he just scored, just to make all the pain go away for Torres. Right. He's one of my favorite strikers. Just a point of view as an overall striker, and what he did outside the Premier League was also great. But I'm looking at that 16 to 15 range, and if you want to pop him, but in between, it's rather behind in between Les Ferdinand and Letizia, or like behind them.
Unfortunately the goodbye from Fernando Torres was leaving Chelsea. Now, I can look at all the great that you do, similar to that. Somebody who's relatively nearby in this list of somebody like a Michael Owen. I look at the early and I look at the good, but then, like you said, signing for Michael Owen, signing for Stoke City, that kind of weird role he had at Manchester United at the end there, like those are the kind of that's the aftertaste that you leave in somebody's mouth. And I think that a lot of the time, James, you and I know this from being wrestling fans, like you got to go out in the right way, or people start to look at you differently. And you need to go out the right way. So I think that says to me for Torres, I agree with you. If the guy stays at Liverpool for his whole career, maybe he's gracing the top 10. Who knows? James, another guy. I believe he only spent a season, maybe a season and a half, more in the Premier League than Luis Suarez. So wasn't really the longest serving guy ever. But at the peak of his powers, Ruud van Nistelrooy. What do you think?
Jack, 6 to 10. Ruud van Nistelrooy. What a finisher! Pure out and out goal scorer. Like, just he was a part of. Go on, Jack.
Just quickly, I don't feel comfortable putting him above any of the names that he shares that list with.
Jack, but for what he did in that that time.
What I'm saying is, like, I like him there. I don't like him ahead of Bergkamp or Andy Cole or Didier Drogba.
Okay, I'll let you get it. Jack, Okay, that's fair enough. Like that's fair enough. But
We'll play with it. We're happy to play with it. Like I'll just drop this in now. I want Drogba ahead of Aguero. I'm just putting that out there. James, Robin van Persie. Man, we're going from, as an Arsenal fan, going from Ruud van Nistelrooy to Robin van Persie, really putting you through the ringer at this point. Robin van Persie, what do you think?
Jack, it's a weird one for me because we look at what he did for Manchester United and like him winning the title for them. It's amazing. But the problem with ranking Robin van Persie is that he also had a good 6 to 7 years where like he was just out injured so many times. If it wasn't for them injuries, you're easily, it's an easy top 10 for what he did in his last 2 seasons at Arsenal and then his first season at Manchester United. Sensational. But them first like 5 years at Arsenal where he's out all the time, it's hard for me to rank him. I personally want to put him in the top 10 for what he done.
I just to let you know where I'm coming from, I like him 12th, just behind Harry Kane.
I'm happy with that, Jack. I'm happy.
I don't, like you say, it's kind of the reverse of Torres, isn't it? Because he left the sweetest taste, going. He won a title. He was winning golden boots. He was doing all this fantastic stuff. He had that crazy, Flying Dutchman lob diving header in the World Cup, and he was really kind of just killing it. But you don't remember those years from the beginning. I always remember that volley where he like jumps over the defender.
My days against Charlton at the Den where the ball comes across from Abue and he just
that's unreal. Like that I have as a memory. But early Robin van Persie, like people forget how long he was at Arsenal. People seem to think he only had like 4 years there, but it was a long time.
And it wasn't like Arsenal's fault. This guy Van Persie is a football player, so talented, but he just could not stay fit, Jack. And when everything was going so well with him, you just get injured and you notice and you'd be like, "Oh, Van Persie's been out for 5 months. I didn't know that." Oh,
I'm hoping we don't have similarities with Martinelli. I know that Arsenal fans are so excited about him, as am I. I honestly believe he's probably Arsenal's best striker option when fit. But he can't seem to stay fit at the moment. Jamie Vardy.
Jack,
go ahead.
I want to put Jamie Vardy in the top 10.
Okay.
Why? Because yes, like he probably won't score as much goals as actually. Let me see. What he's 15th. No, he's 19th all time. He's 115 goals and counting. But Jack, that one title with Leicester to me put him in a stratosphere that a lot of people cannot touch.
Yep.
He's still at Leicester right now, and like for this guy to come to the Premier League at the age of like 27, after being in non-league his whole career, and to score 115 goals, to be the guy to score the most consecutive Premier League goals in the history of the Premier League, like for what he's done overall, Jack, you have to put him in the top 10. It's a rags to rich story. And just I'm the type of guy, I love a good story to it. I'm putting him in the top 10 for what he's done.
I think there's something about Vardy where he has loads of plus points and then he has some that he doesn't have. The Leicester City title win gives him crazy points. Like, oh my God, that's huge. But then I think what's interesting is I would look at somebody like a Sergio Aguero, and maybe even somebody like a Ruud van Nistelrooy or even a Van Persie, and just think, what you had around you to help you succeed was so obvious, whereas Vardy hasn't had that. Rags to riches is your point, and everything Jamie Vardy's had, he's earned through just pure tenacity and will to do it and get there. But then there's a certain level of that because maybe he hasn't done it at the top level, and I know he's won a Premier League, and I'm not going to, fluke is the wrong word, but it's an outlier. If you look at Premier League history, that Leicester win is the outlier. That's the one that no one saw coming. I don't know how I feel. I'm happy to put him 10th, but I feel a little bit conflicted about seeing the likes of Robin van Persie and Harry Kane behind somebody like Jamie Vardy. What do you make of that?
They're all better footballers than Jamie Vardy, but the point of view of just what he's doing with Leicester, Jack, we don't know how many goals he's going to end up with in the Premier League. Do you see him slowing down anytime soon? He may end his Premier League career with 150 Premier League goals and a Premier League medal, maybe two more, maybe add another golden boot to it.
Right.
Like for what he did, Ruben Nistelrooy, as great as like he is for Manchester United, bear in mind he only won one Premier League title during his 5 years in Manchester United. He won
Right.
one Premier League title. Yeah, but we are automatically thinking of him as one of the greatest of all time in like the Premier League history. The problem with Jamie Vardy is that the overall painting doesn't look nice, but when you look where that painting has come from, to me, it's a top 10.
So we've got Dwight York down here. His buddy Andy Cole is sitting there in seventh. What do you think? Does he need to go in the 16 to 20? If so, where? Or if not, does he need to go a little lower down maybe?
You can pop Dwight York in between Robbie Fowler and Fernando. But if you want to put him ahead of Fowler, I'm fine with that. But
I don't know. I think yet again, I know it's kind of the curse of playing for good teams, but anybody from those great Manchester United teams, like we have to think about this. Manchester United have been really the dominant force in Premier League football since its inception. Obviously, we've seen that change over the last 8, 9, 10 years or so, which is brilliant in terms of competitiveness. But you really have to stand out to be good for those kind of positions. And I just wonder sometimes. I look at players who are a part of great teams, and I just take away a little bit. So I'm happy with him there, but I think I'd probably take Robbie Fowler on his day over Dwight York. James, first of all, you're looking at the list. What don't you like about it? What do you think needs to change?
Maybe Alan Shearer above
Eric Cantona.
Cantona, but I think Cantona is definitely top. Like when I think about it, Cantona is definitely top 5, easily top 3. To be honest, Jack, I'm quite happy with that. James, I'm quite happy.
I don't love seeing somebody like Ruud van Nistelrooy in the top 10 with Kane and Van Persie outside of the top 10. And I know we talked about it, but part of me thinks, are we underrating what Kane has done already? Or do you not think so?
I get it, but I feel like Kane has just scored goals in the Premier League. He's to me like a Russell Westbrook. Like Russell Westbrook is gonna put up numbers upon numbers upon numbers, but them numbers need to mean something.
Isn't that what Alan Shearer has done?
Jack, Alan Shearer won a Premier League title. But
also, James, if Harry Kane goes to a Man City or a
But Jack, that's the thing about it. Like, we're ranking Harry Kane now. If Harry Kane finishes his career, he could be top 10. Like if he finishes it all time, like the way he's going, he looks like he will beat Alan Shearer's record. Yeah?
Maybe.
I expect him to be in the top 6, top 5 one day. This is just going on right now. And even then, I feel a bit uncomfortable to say Van Persie, but the problem is Jack, I'm happy. I'm happy with this. If I'm being honest.
My final plea to you, because I'm after that little exchange, I'm pretty happy with it too. I'd like to put Drogba over Aguero. You're probably not going to budge on that, but
no,
okay,
no. You look at Drogba's overall Premier League record. That's James, the only problem with it. But I love, but Drogba. If I had a final and I have to pick a striker out of all these strikers, I'm picking Didier Drogba without a doubt.
James, are you happy with Andy Cole in 7th?
What, should he be lower?
Yeah.
Jack, he's 2nd or 3rd all time in Premier League history. He's won 4 or 5 Premier League titles. Like.
No, I know. Hey, I get it. I understand, but I don't know. I look at the names as I'm scrolling across, and I just look at Andy Cole's name. I just think, I don't know.
Jack, but that's the thing. He's underrated.
Well, I mean, James, that about sums it up. I mean, anybody further down the list who you're not happy with, or is everybody being respected relatively well down there?
Jack, to be fair, I feel like we did a good job. I want to know how everyone feels about it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I may go to bed and I may like hit my pillow because I realize I messed up right now. But guys, right now I'm quite happy with it. And to be fair, this is a lot of work right now. But guys, tell me what you think right now. Right? Are you happy with this list? Henry 1, should it happen? Should we even have Jurgen Klinsmann in there? Romelu Lukaku? Let us know, guys. Comments down below. Tell me what you think about this list. If it's rubbish, let us know. If it's great, let us know. Like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.